All right. Doug, the defense's strategy was fairly clear today in court. Portrayed Daniels as money hungry and as someone who loved all the attention from the former president's critics. The defense also trying to discredit her, saying that her story about the alleged sexual encounter has changed over the years, which it has. Do you think they were effective with this strategy today?
Well, I think it's effective if you're listening, and I think that goes back to the whole issue of what this jury is hearing and not hearing. Again, criminal trials, and Tom knows this as well, is comes down to the elements of the crime, or is the prosecution proving the elements of the crime, and can the defense poke holes in that theory? At this point in time, I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me, whether it's Stormy Daniels' testimony or anything else, is they've not been able to connect the illegality of what's going on here. They've not been able to trace this back to something that they can point to and say, here's Donald Trump specifically doing X that caused this. And the Daniels testimony, I think her story changing, the different aspects of what she's been giving causes, a lot of problems in a normal case if you would have. But again, they've tried to make this a very salacious case. And again, salaciousness in a court will get it overturned, which we've seen in other cases in New York. And it seems like almost at time, not just sleeping through evidence class, the judge, I think he may have slept through court procedures as well, or he may be asking to get this thing overturned on appeal, because everything so far has seemingly led toward that. And Daniels, frankly, she did what she was going to do. And it's now up to again, to Trump's folks to say, look, the holes are here. We've proved it.
Tom, do you think, and just hear me out on this theory, that the prosecution, all they really want is the American public to hear these kind of salacious details about the former president? If you do a Google search right now about what Stormy Daniels has said, you'll see all kinds of crazy headlines, things that have nothing to do with the charges. And I think at the end of the day, they don't really care. They just want the American public to hear what happened between these two to sway the election one way or another.
Yes, and add to that, keeping him off the campaign trail, add to that, making it hard for him to raise money. And as you so elegantly put time and again, it also takes the border off the headlines. It even takes Israel off the headlines. They don't have to hear all these things. This is their strategy. You know what? Look, this case should have never gone forward. The judge doesn't have even the authority to apply federal law. He should have done this all along, said, I can't do this. So you are left with no other theory than what you are saying.
I think that's a great point. Doug, to spread that out a little bit further, to expand that thought, I know also that liberal media, they are covering this as if it's almost a Me Too type of trial for Stormy Daniels. I admittedly was flipping through earlier, watching CNN, and they were talking about how bad they felt for her, that President Trump might possibly have made her feel intimidated during their encounter all those years ago. That's not what this trial is about. Doug, do you think that between left-wing media and what the judge himself and this DA are trying to do you think that could negatively affect people's perceptions of Donald Trump, even if the facts aren't accurate?
Of course. I mean, because you have people who just basically watch, clips and sound bites on their favorite movie channel, so to speak, or their favorite news network, especially if they're looking at the CNNs and the MSNBCs and the NBCs of the world. They're just seeing and getting fed this kind of line. However, I think the polling has shown pretty clear here. Most people view this trial is a waste of time, shouldn't be happening. If you didn't like Donald Trump, you think the trial is a good thing. If you like Donald Trump, you don't think it is. And most of the American people are frankly tired of it, because they believe with so much being piled on that this is exactly what's happened. The Biden administration and these DAs are trying to get Donald Trump simply because they don't like him. That's why the salaciousness comes out. That's why the stories come out, because they got, they have no law to go on. They have no facts. I agree. The judge should have never heard this to start with. They've even tried to bring in crimes that were not even charged into this, saying that they interfered in election in New York state law, which they didn't even go into. So, I mean, this is more of, if we can convince enough people that what we did was right by having these details come out, making him look like a bad person, which is all they're trying to do. And then if we and then the ultimate prize will be to have that jury come back and say guilty. But there are two attorneys on that jury panel that have been noted many times before. Unless they slept through law school, how they make this case, the prosecutors tie this case up, I'm not sure how the lawyers in a straight face can say this case is being made. So I think it's going to be an interesting way how this comes out. But they're getting what they want. They're trying to make Trump look bad. And number two, all they're asking for is a guilty. They don't even care if it's a turned over pill. They just want a guilty.
They don't care. It's all for votes. All for votes. Come